The longer I've been doing this, the more and more I'm convinced that you've got to make sure measurement is as simple as possible, but as complicated as necessary.
We want marketing to be the engine for growth. It's the key differentiator between brands, and it's the thing that can really drive a brand towards higher profits year on year. But to make sure marketing can do that, to fulfill its role as the engine for growth, we need to be able to measure the impact effectively. And that's why it's key right now.
We need to focus really on the metrics that matter. And the key challenge facing CMOs today is basically to make sure that they can justify, that they can explain to other people in their organization how marketing can be the engine room for growth, how it can really drive the company forward in terms of profitability growth year on year.
Just because you can measure something doesn't mean you should, and it doesn't mean you can manage it if you can measure it. So it's really understanding what are the key metrics and what are the key metrics to whom. So for most of the brands that we spoke to and most of our clients, the key overarching metric is year-on-year profitable growth.
Sky is fairly big, and we have a fairly sizable marketing budget as well. I personally have about 50 managing director level stakeholders who all have very different interests, KPIs, and a bunch of other metrics that they just like to sort of track. Back then, we approximately had about 2,000 to 3,000 metrics, and then there was an exec sort of led project about sort of essentially boiling that down to the top 12 KPIs.
If I were to rewind 3 years ago, we were kind of starting in a situation where we had as many KPIs and tracking metrics as there were kind of combinations of brands and countries, which is to say there are just a lot of them. So what we went about doing was organizing ourselves. And that really began with creating kind of a culture and a language for how we talked about marketing effectiveness.
This year, I was lucky enough to be invited to be one of the technical judges of the Effectiveness Awards. Value perception and price elasticity and the long-term effects of advertising, they were hardly discussed at all. And for me, these have got really strong correlation with profitable growth.
We talked a bit about Ehrenberg Bass and Bar & Sharp. You know, we know that that is really important in what drives growth, and we know that actually that's quite different from what is the pure digital efficiency mindset. But what we do think is that culture of analytics can help us approach that problem in a slightly different way.
But also it's a journey. So right at the beginning of the journey, we're just using data in a purely descriptive sense. So what is happening now? Now that was the case 2 or 3 years ago. That was a bit of a struggle. There were many companies, many big multinational companies for sure, who were struggling to use data just to say what is happening now. Never mind moving up the value chain into why it's happening and anticipating what's going to happen next.
The Cmo Dashboard contains all the core metrics across all of Sky, irrespective of if it's econometrics, research, or customer analytics. Moving forward, that Cmo Dashboard is going to be the main interface for interacting with our exec when it comes to measuring marketing effectiveness.
The real best-in-class companies are those that run a permanent test and learn program, where they're always testing something, they're always learning, and then they move on to the next test and learn within a defined program that has got buy-in across the company. That's real best-in-class.